perfectly.
Great. Hello, everyone. I hope you can all hear and see me. Thank you, Nikolai, for the great presentation. It has been great to see so much news for CAD. And hello from me. I'm connecting with you from Aalborg, North Denmark. And in the upcoming 35 minutes, I'll be talking about news in impact for Revit. So I hope you have still some coffee. If you don't, nobody can see that you leave the presentation to tongue up. That's one of the few advantages about doing online user conference. Well, let's start. It has been a long year since last we met in Malmö, Sweden. A lot has happened, and if I have to sum up what we've been working on and how our year has gone in impact for Revit team, then I'll say that we can qualify or we can characterize this year with two words, and that would be improvement and adjustment. And why improvement? Well, it's because it's, as I said, has been an intensive year for us and for all of you, I guess. And we have experienced a great interest in our software. We have experienced a great interest in Impact Revit and onboarded tens of new companies. Our team is, of course, very happy for the growing interest, which has also made us improve and make a lot of existing functionalities make a step forward. A lot of them I've selected and will show you today. On the other hand, we also needed to adjust to the high demands of the growing interest, and we needed to adjust to the new reality that hit us all. What we also worked a lot on is collaboration. Now, when we need to collaborate, when we sit in different locations, we always need to take the data of our projects. So it has to be easy, it has to be available, and communication, collaboration, that has been one of our focus during this year. So we focus not only on collaboration within Revit, but also collaboration within the impact software. I could say that we spread our development efforts almost equally during all type of elements. And that's why I've taken all of them to you today. So let's see what this presentation is about. We're going to start with the wall. The wall, most popular precast element among our users in Impact. We're going to focus this time on reinforcement in Impact Revit of the walls instead of the modeling. I guess that a lot has been said about modeling. We've been working a lot about it. Now we take it a step further and we try to see how to ease the reinforcement part. We're also going to talk about the double wall. And the double wall, it's what we called the last missing diamond of the Impact Revit crown. It was the last missing diamond. But then back in September, we released modeling functionality for double wall. We continue working on it, and I would like to show you some highlights that you might already be using when we talk about double wall functionalities. We can, of course, not go without column and beams, and here I will show you a feature that a lot of you might have been missing. It's already there, and I would like to show that to you so you can make use of it if you haven't found out yet. Then I'm going to focus on slab, form slab, and their respective pre-stress versions. As quite popular elements, I'm going to talk about advanced, again, reinforcement possibilities in slabs and modeling. Those are elements that need to be designed fast, effectively, and we put a lot of efforts on our functionalities there. I want to show you some highlights. Yes, we cannot go without the shop drawing either. That's inevitable part of each precast model. So here I would like to show you how to copy a shop drawing in Impact for Revit, a new functionality that came because of you. You asked for it, and we worked on it during this year. And we also are going to talk about how to connect the shop drawing in Revit with the rest of the Impact software. For example, setting drawing statuses. And last but not least, collaboration is on our list with topics. I'm going to show you some tips and tricks about collaboration with Impact Revit models in Impact 16. In the end, we have around 35 minutes for this presentation. In the end, we're going to have time for questions as well. Okay, questions and answers. But let's start. Let's not lose time and start with the first topic. It's the wall. I'm gonna rearrange my screen like this, and then we are ready to go. As I said in the start, this time we're going to talk about reinforcement boundary in walls. And there is some kind of delay. I don't know if you can see it on your screen, but I'm going to try again like this. Now I think it's going to work. Great. So the first topic I want to talk about walls is the reinforcement boundary. And let's see the problem that a lot of Revit users face, and that has a lot to do with the reinforcement. So I've taken an example like this one. You can see in here we have quite a challenging shape. We have a challenging but also quite typical for precast element. We need to insert to make a place for casting material. We need to make a place for column. We need to adjust the shape of the inner and outer panel. And then we need to stop the reinforcement 20 millimeters before the edges of the element, respectively the load bearing and the facade. Now, what Revit users see as a challenge is that there is limitations in the Revit software, because you have a cover settings, but they take the outer edge of the element, which obviously is not going to work in our case. So we said we need to optimize this setting of reinforcement and cover settings. We've done that a lot in Impact. Impact AutoCAD has an Impact for CAD has history for solving this problem by reinforcement boundaries. And this is what we also implemented in Revit, seen with the Revit tools. Now, we combine Revit tools with Impact tools. So what we do is, of course, we make an in-cap. That's the shape of the wall. That's one of the most powerful tools that the designer has in Impact. We make the edge with the help of the in-cap. And here I have the in-cap B, I call it. And what I can do is I can define the thing called reinforcement boundary. So I can say that whatever reinforcement from the reinforcement templates in Impact they can stop there where I decide, in this case 20 millimeters. So once I go and define the reinforcement template, I can just apply it. It's a template that consists of a mesh, edge rebars and opening rebars. And then you can see that's the result. It's going to adjust to the shape that I have given. It's going to look like this. If we see from a top view, it's a see-through view, so we can see the casting material, we can see the mesh. And in Revit, as a visual software as it is, we have a lot of possibilities to measure, but also to adjust according to it. One of the great parts about this reinforcement template in caps, you can also do a casting material template, is that It all can be saved in your impact database and can be used, can also be reused from the database. If you already have them in your standards, in your impact standard, you can also reuse them now in impact 16. So try it out. If you have issues reinforcing, adjusting the mesh in a precast element, take and try this one, the reinforcement boundary. Another setting, which I know a lot of you have been waiting for, is what we call the direction arrow. It's more like a visual guidance to the where the sides of the precast elements are. Now you say, why do we need to see the sides of the element? And it's because in impact, we need as a designers to know, to define from early stage where the element mark, the name of the element will be on our drawing, because later on, this will also define from which side we see the element on the shop drawing, but also how the element is going to lie on the precast bed. So for me as a designer, that's very important to know. And in Revit, we had this, especially if you draw in this, we call original view. The element, even though it's a sandwich wall, pretty easy to see, but if you draw in original, which you do most of the time, it's very hard to know which side we are now. Are we the load bearing or the facade? And this we solve by adding this direction arrow. You go to settings in the Revit file and you can decide your profile. You can pick whatever shape you want. I know some of you are doing rectangulars, triangles, text. It's up to you. But you pick your profile, and then every time you draw a wall, what we're going to do now here in the video, you can see that you are not in doubt which is my load-bearing part, if this is where your element mark is going to be. Yes, good. So I will jump to the next topic, which is the double wall. And as I said before, the double wall, it's something we've been spending a lot of time this year, and we couldn't wait to come up with the solutions we found for you. So back in September in Q3, we released what you see here on the right, the first functionalities of double wall. And these are modeling features. So Revit gives us a very great visual presentation of the double walls. You can see, if we see from a top view, we can see that we have the two panels, the space between, and then lattice girder families. If we go in the 3D view, see the same elements. Well, we can see also the lifters in here. You can make some see-through settings. It's great. You can also see in here that you have the direction arrow also in 3D view, both for double walls and all three types of precast walls. So it's very good for designer to orientate, where do I see my double wall or wall now? But let's see some of the highlights that we have. First of all, it's the drawing part, of course. This is the draw double wall window, and we try to make it as dynamic and visual as we can, and as long as we don't hit any limitations, we try to do it as easy for you as we can. So you can see the joints in the corners. You can decide already in the drawing window which part of the, or which panel we call it, dries by the other. You can decide the gap between the elements. It's very visual for you now as a designer to draw a double wall. Once you go closer to it, as we do here in the video, you can see how the lattice girder families are placed. You can measure the distance and see also how the reinforcement, in this case, I think I have a mesh instead of rebars. It's very visual to understand the double wall element. But then, of course, once you draw, you need to edit, and we provide some modeling tools. One of them I want to demonstrate now. It's the one we call switch priority of joints. So here we have a tool that you can either switch the outer panel joining, or you can switch both of them at the same time. So you decide which panel drives by each other. And if you notice, there was a place there where we had one lattice girder going red. And then you say, what does it mean? It's a kind of a warning from impact to a user that we incorporated in our system. So if we see here in the double wall definition, it's again an element that has to be designed fast. We need to go fast with the modeling part, and a lot of settings we decide already in advance, like lift and bracing, the geometry of it, reinforcement mesh, but also the lattice girder. So we can decide the lattice girder family. We can decide the spacing between the girders, but we can also decide the minimum and the maximum edge, minimum maximum distance from a lattice girder to the edge of the element. Once impact finds out that these requirements are not longer satisfied, then you can get a red warning. And what to do with it, a red lattice girder. What to do with it is up to you. Might be your meaning as a designer that you want to keep it. You say it's fine, but you can also use the edit lattice girder functionality. So it's a very fast way to select the wall, and then a window like this is going to come out. And take a look at this. It's a window where you have the dimensions pointed out between the girders. You have a possibility to add a new girder. You have a possibility to move a girder or to erase, and the window is totally changing together with the change you made in your element. So it's a pretty good presentation of how your element looks like now. And once you go and press and close, you've decided that's how your lattice girder is going to be placed. You are going to experience that impact will adjust the lattice girders to the geometry of the wall. So if you have a window opening, we call it recess in impact. So if you have a recess in the element, if you have a panel that is a little bit longer or a part that is longer, we're going to adjust the lattice girders to a geometry. So you don't need to think about that as a designer. It has to be automatic. It is automatic, and it goes fast. Yes, it is. The three features that are found now for double wall. We made actually a webinar about a double wall back in October that you can find on our TrueSurf YouTube channel. So if you're interested already now, you want to see what all those tools we have here on the right are doing, go and check the webinar or Impact Wiki, which I'm going to show later today. Yes, now we go to an element which I know a lot of you are using, that's the slab and the respective pre-stressed slab. And I want to show you also a feature about reinforcing the slabs. So here I've taken an example that could be a balcony. So we have again a kind of challenging shape, and let's say for some reason you want to stop the mesh in the element 90 millimeter from the edge. Could be a special reinforcement, could be a joint. You want to do any reason for that, but you want to stop the reinforcement. Again, we provide a tool with that called the reinforcement boundary in the in cap of a slab. So here I've drawn the shape and the line that you see in here, and I switch on and off in my in-cap definition. That's the reinforcement boundary. So reinforcement boundary valid for three types of walls: massive, insulated, sandwich walls, and then the slab and the pre-stressed slab. It's a very powerful tool that can, once you apply the reinforcement template, apply a reinforcement, immediately can adjust the reinforcement according to the edge. Now here we're going to another improvement that we made to our tools, and that's the edit slab command. First of all, you can now in Q4, the release that's coming next week, we have added a possibility to apply a reinforcement template to a slab, just like you can already do in walls. But you can also see that I've selected almost 4 slab elements, and I can edit the edges of the slab, those in caps, and I get this very visual editing slab tool where I can, me as a designer, I can control very fast in this window. First of all, which edge I have selected, and then once I select the in cap, I can see a preview of it here on the right part. So edit slab and edit pre-stressed slab, whatever feature I show about slab, it's also relevant for pre-stressed slab. I showed only once, so go and try it and see how it works for you. And also we've got some feedback from users, and they're very happy about this new way we do it in Impact Revit. Good. Now it's time for form slab. And form slab is quite an interesting element. We have the massive part of it, the concrete part, and we have the lattice girder families again. And it's again one of the characteristics of this element is that we need to design it fast. So already in the definition, we decide, for example, the edges of it. And what I can do in the Impact Revit definition is that now I can define the edge of it. What I have taken as an example in this definition is that we have edge between elements, and this is what we call chamfer. And here, right, 10 millimeters, it means that it has to be cut on the edge. This we can define already in the definition. And then I say that other edges where I don't meet other elements, it needs to be fine. So what we did during this year is that we worked on our draw form slab command as well, so that during designing the element, during drawing the element, you as a user, you're provided as a possibility according to the definition that you selected to go and choose the edge. So here in edges, I have a possibility. If you go into this tab, the software is going to show you the predefined edges in your definition, but you can always go and press on previous and next, choose edge from the definition, say copy to all, or change an edge. The same is relevant for the support length. And then, of course, we have a lot of other definition settings that you can also change during drawing the form slab. So edges, it's something that we released, as long as I remember, in the middle of the year. If you haven't tried that yet, go and see how it works. It's a really useful tool to help the modeling goes faster. I will stay a little bit more on form slab now, because what other thing we experience with form slab users in Impact Revit is that they sometimes, when they draw a hole in form slab, we talk about hole. We don't have in Impact language, we don't say recess as in other elements. So in slab, we use recesses. In form slabs, we say holes. So when you draw a hole, sometimes, as it was before, you need to draw the hole. If you're not satisfied with the shape, you needed to edit and then edit the shape or edit the hole. It was a little bit, it was a process that was taking time. So what we did is that we utilized the Revit API and we opened for drawing hole with edit values in the drawing process. So here you can see that they use the Revit tools. And now if I draw a recess like this one, and I say, oh, it has to be 200 millimeter, then I can, during the drawing process, define it as a 200 millimeter. And the same if I go and draw a shape that is a little bit more challenging, you can take the outer edges of the element as a reference. So by the way, you can always also decide if you want to cut the lattice girders, if you want to show the hole and specifications, and if you want to retain or delete the objects. But take a look at here. I am now able, while drawing this recess, to actually edit the shape according to the outer edges, or now if this size is a little bit, this number is a little bit tricky, I can just round it around. The draw hole with adding values already now available in Impact Revit. You can try it out. Good. We're jumping now to the shop drawing, and shop drawing is inevitable part of the precast process, and it's a process that we are very pressed. So we thought this year, what can we do to save time when drawing Impact Revit shop drawings? And you actually gave us the answers. Can we copy the shop drawing? And yes, we can. We did a functionality that can copy a shop drawing from one assembly, that's an element in Revit, from one element to another. So here is the falling menu. Here you can find a lot of functionalities about shop drawings in Impact for Revit. And I've taken an example with 2 columns in here. So let's say we have 2 columns that are totally identical in terms of geometry, components, reinforcement, and we press on Create Shop Drawing. That's the first functionality on our falling menu. And what we have in Impact is a great feature that is going to create the same shop drawing for 2 identical elements. The shop drawing is going to be called CO1, and so is the element mark. Later on in the production process, you can easily differentiate between those 2 elements because they have, of course, different IDs. But now we have a shop drawing for 2 totally identical elements. And it happens often that later on in the design process, we have another element, if it's a column or beam or a wall, that is identical, but with a small difference. Let's say you need to add a cast material, a little bit slightly different reinforcement, different lift, whatever. But there is one difference that you as a designer can control. And what users experience is that they spend time on shop drawings as it is now. So on this shop drawings that we see, it might be that I have moved the views, I have adjusted some dimension lines, added some manual text, added a detail, anything. And I've used, let's say, 20 minutes for this column shop drawing. And when I have a similar element, and I know as a designer there's only one difference, let's say casting material, I don't want to spend the same 20 minutes again. So that's where you can go and choose the copy shop drawing command. Now the new element is going automatically to be given a new name, a new assembly name, first by Revit and then by Impact. It's going to be called CO2 because there is a difference, might be a slightly 1 millimeter, but Impact Revit is always going to recognize a difference. That's kind of security for you as a users. But then you can activate the copy shop drawing and already ready shop drawing, as we have for CO1, you can copy it to CO2. And then go as a designer, and because you have control of the slightly change that you need, you can just edit the CO2 shop drawing. So you save time. You save time editing the newly created shop drawing of an element. A very powerful functionality that works for an element with shop drawings when you have control over the changes. It turns out to be very useful for some of our users. And I want to round up the shop drawing section with a functionality called Set Drawing Status, which is also new for this year. And if you work with our great production tools and project manager, then you know that in Impact Project Manager, you can set the shop drawing status of a shop drawing. And that's a great way to communicate between design, production, and precast team. But what we did this year is that we connected Revit, Impact Revit, with the rest of the Impact software. So all those statuses, they came from our Impact Standard. They're set up in Impact Standard Admin. Once the administrator of the company does it, probably in your case, if you use them, they're on your own language, or you have more or less totally adjustable to company needs. What you can do now in Impact for Revit is that you can, if you have 9, let's say in my example, I have 9 shop drawings, you can already set a shop drawing status that is predefined in your Impact Standard. And you can make this VP01 a manufactured drawing, from preliminary to a manufactured drawing. Next time you go in Revit and open the shop drawing, the parameter will be automatically updated to a manufactured drawing in your shop drawing head. And you go to Project Manager, you update the project information, and VP01, the shop drawing from Revit, we also has the empty drawing status. All this setting up Impact Revit with the Impact Standard Admin and Impact, all these new features that were developed, we documented in Wiki, which I'm also going to show very fast in the end of my presentation. But it's a great tool for communicating and for connecting the design in Revit with the rest of the Impact software. And again, very easy to use and navigate, automatically updating between updating the shop drawings. It's automatically done once you open the assembly shop drawing, the element shop drawing. Yes, good. And last but not least, I would like to talk about collaboration. And this time I'm gonna talk about collaboration between the Impact software. Now, a lot of you experienced Revit users that are attending today, you already know very well what's the rules within Revit. But what was important for us this year and generally Impact 16 is to bring these collaboration possibilities to take them to a next level, and that's Impact Revit models and collaboration, not only within Revit, but also in Impact. If you have already installed Impact 16, probably you see that you have a section called Project Files. In Project Files, you have a Revit part where you can see all Revit files that are linked to your project. Once you you press on Revit, right-click, You can create a new project file out of the project manager, and you can give it name, description, you can decide the project template. You're going to choose the one that you have in your standard. And here it's also important to mention that in Impact Server Connect, you all have that. If you use Impact, you can make settings to which AutoCAD software you can use, let's say which version, 2019 in my case, and which Revit version you use. This is useful to have because I know a lot of Revit users, they have at least two. So it's good to say to project manager to make a settings, if I make a new Revit file, in which version I want to make it. That's one thing. And then all your Revit files are going to be listed. They're visible in project manager, not like in Impact 15, only in your project folder. They are now also in project manager. But if you have a central file, it means a Revit file with activated work sharing, we can also going to detect that. And this is an example where we have a BIM 360 central model up in the cloud, and we have several users working on it. But in Impact Project Manager, we can also see that. We can see that this is a central file. We're going to say yes. And in this case, we have just several Revit files that are linked to my Impact. And it says no to central file because it's just a separate Revit file. If you use Revit files with or without collaboration or work sharing activated, it's up to you. But we're going to show you how the settings are made in Impact Project Manager 16. And a feature that we released, I guess in September it was, but if you haven't used that, if you haven't heard about it, I think it's good to know. You know, before we had the possibility to link grid lines from Revit models through our manage grid lines functionality to Impact. And then in Project Manager Model View, you could see your grid lines. And grid lines are the bones of our design. They're sacred, and it's a really good possibility. In Project Manager, you can go to grid lines and here, activate them, and then you can see your elements according to it. But that was not enough. It was not enough that we can see from one Revit model. We wanted to see from more. And this is what we developed this year. Now it's possible to take grid lines from several Revit models connected to the Impact project and save them in the database, link them to the database and preview them so in Project Manager. As long as you have, as long as it's not also a problem if you have the same grid lines. Let's say all those Revit files, they have the same grid line name. Let's say grid line 4. You can still connect them for the four Revit from the 4 Revit files. The technical explanation behind it is that we're going to take the origin X and origin Y and save it in our database, and then every time you open manage grids, then we can see okay, everything is okay, we're linked, and is there some new, we want to link them back. The length, that parameter is not that relevant because you know how it says you can move up and down according to the how your plan drawing looks like, for example. But one last thing about this feature is that it's also a great way to check your grid lines. So let's say me as a designer, I'm collaborating with other people, and let's say 4 of them, and as it happens during collaboration, somebody moves something and it wasn't that intentionally. It happens sometimes. Next time, if I have moved in the grid line 4 by mistake, next time I open manage grids, we're going to compare its placement with the database and with the Revit model. Then we're going to say, ho, there is actually a changed grid location, and that's the grid line 4. Now, then it's up to me as a user to say, was that a mistake? If it's a mistake, then I can just go and move it in place. And next time I open manage grids, it's going to be black, everything's going to be fine. But if it wasn't a mistake, if that's intentional, then it's also fine, because I can just go and say apply, and then the location is going to be overwritten in our impact database. So I know a lot of you are using grid lines. It's almost inevitable in our project. So a new possibility here in Impact for Revit: use grid lines for several Revit models that are linked to one impact project, and preview them then in the project manager. Good. Now it's time for questions. And if you have some questions, you are more than free to write them down in your GoToWebinar screen. If there are questions that are that are more than 5 minutes, require more than 5 minutes to answer, then I would say that you can always send them to us and to our team. We'll be more happy to help. While we're waiting for eventually questions, I would like to show you also the Impact Wiki section, this time for Revit. Nikolai went through the wiki. It was a great presenting of how to find release notes. What I've taken here is the Impact for Revit section. So if you go and wonder, how do I set up the drawing statuses in my drawing template, or how do I do work sharing with Impact Revit? We've tried to document as much as possible during the year all the features that are relevant for the Impact Revit releases. So once you go to Impact for Revit, the articles are structured according to the topic. Yes, I cannot see any questions coming now. I'll wait 1 minute more. And while we're waiting, I would like to go to the agenda and see where we are right now. We've just had the impact design for Revit presentation, and now it's coming a lunch break. 1 o'clock in the afternoon, this is Central European time. We're going to continue with some very interesting presentations regarding Impact Project Manager and the production tools. There are great productions in Impact. And then we're going to finish with an index page in the afternoon by Peter, where he's going to review some ideas about our next version of Impact 17. So don't miss that out either. I don't see any questions yet. If you didn't manage to write them down, or you are keeping them for talking with us on the phone, that's totally fine. So I'll think we can end that now, and say have a great lunch break and have a great online user conference day the rest of the day. Now it's time for lunch.